reason why I think we're doing very well. People are saying, finally, there's someone who's focused on letting me take back control of my own life and create a great future for my family. So that is, to answer your question, one of the reasons why we've had such incredible success over the last 2 years.
In the beginning was the Word. Christ is a master at using short, mysterious stories. They change the listener who takes them seriously. My experience with the biblical text is that they're inexhaustible sources of wisdom. If I find something in them that is an obstacle, it's because there's something in me that has yet to be transformed. I just don't get it.
The person that you do not think could ever be virtuous. Oh, let me show you. This is the person who is fulfilling the law of the prophets.
But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you as well.
I don't believe in that promise. I'll just be honest at this point. That has not been part of my experience.
This parable I've been trying to understand forever. While we were talking and while we were sitting there, then it hit me. I saw it.
Name me one ideology that has supplanted Christianity that has done good for humanity. This Jew is very frightened of a post-Christian society.
He was the God-man, the model, the example of what we ought to become and what we can become.
It's okay. It's safe for you and all of your doubts and apprehensions to open up and to let these stories in. He is the temple. He is the Torah. He is the covenant. He is prophecy fulfilled.
If you're doing this and it isn't also the love of wisdom, it's also an attempt at wisdom without love. In both ways, you're going radically wrong.
Our love. That sounds so cliche.
60s, eh? I don't want to be in a Hallmark card, I tell you.
We've got our work cut out for us, gentlemen. This is one peculiar time and one peculiar text, and I sure hope we're up to the task. Okay, so there's a lot of distrust, generally speaking, in relationship to, I would say, establishment organizations and political elites all across the West. A lot of that well-earned. Why should Canadians believe that the vision that you just laid out is something that you hold personally dear and not merely what would you say, a set of carefully calculated campaign slogans?
Well, I look back at everything I've done for my entire political career to the time I was a teenager. You know, some people even dug up my old university essays, and I've been saying precisely the same thing the entire time. When I was 20, I wrote an essay as Prime Minister I would, and the title was Building Canada on Freedom. The entire piece was about making the government small and maximizing personal freedom. That's basically what I'm doing now.
So you have consistency.
Well, there were things, when I launched my leadership race, I literally had the same language in my leadership launch speech that I had put in that essay 22 or 23 years earlier. And when I was part of the Harper government, we basically fought for and did the same things then that I'm proposing to do now. So as much as you can be assured of anything any political leader says, I've got evidence to back it up.
Okay, so one of the things that's been very distressing to observe, I would say, and I'm going to use the UK as an example. I mean, the UK had 14 straight years of conservative government.
Yeah.
And, as far as I'm concerned, thank God for that, because it could have been Labour. But having said that, they fell 100% prey to the blandishments of the net zero types and brought forward really a catastrophic energy policy. And the UK is suffering dreadfully for that. And their immigration policy, Keir Starmer apologized for it, which was something remarkable to behold, and so did Kemi Badenoch, who now runs the Conservatives in the UK. Now, the reason I'm bringing them up as an example is because, well, they were a Conservative government, and they certainly didn't govern by anything approximating Conservative principles. And so how do you feel about the probability that if the Conservatives in Canada take power, that they'll be enticed into this global utopian delusion that seems to have enveloped so many leaders, kind of regardless of their political stripe? What do you think, if anything, can inoculate you or has inoculated you against that?
I know better.
Well, elaborate. What do you mean?
I'm not going to do that. And it will be hard, because the temptation will be, this is the mistake that conservative parties around the world have made countless times. They think Well, anybody who's got a conservative mindset is already voting for me, so I can go off and chase the ideas of my political opponents, and then everyone will love me because I'll have the conservatives due to the fact that I have the name conservative, and then I'll have all these other people because I've embraced their contrary direction. And in the short term, it works because you manage to have all of these people under, and all of the different political ideologies captured in one tent. But the problem happens when the policies are a disaster. And then people wake up and go, oh my God, my taxes are now up, the inflation is out of control, the deficit is spiraling, there's crime on the streets. So does the temptation exist to try and take on the political policies of the socialists in the short term? Sure, but it's one that I will fiercely resist because I know that by the 4th year of my mandate, people would be enraged because their lives would be even worse. So it will be tough, though. Like, it's going to be a trade-off.
See the temptation. I mean,
Yeah.
I think many leaders fall prey to the temptation to shine on the international stage, right? I mean, I can't remember who it was in the UK. I believe it was the previous Labour Party leader who said that decisions in Westminster were essentially irrelevant because all the important things were happening internationally, right? And so if people are involved in status climbing and they hit the national pinnacle,
Right.
there's the international world to, what would you say, to dominate or to impress. And that's, I think that the power of that temptation or even of that peer pressure can't be underestimated. So, okay, so now you've been, these events, these 600 events that you've gone to, so let's say that's something approximating 1,000 to 1,200 since we last talked. You spent a lot of time speaking to, and I presume listening to ordinary Canadians. I heard you make a speech in the House of Commons that went viral in the last couple of weeks, and you spoke very persuasively on behalf of working class Canadians. And so tell us what you've learned, what you've heard over the last couple of years, and how that's shaped you and changed you, let's say, as you moved from, as you shifted your position up the political hierarchy and are poised really likely to take the reins in Canada at some point in the next year. You've listened to all these people, and so what have you learned, and what has it made you convinced of, let's say?
Well, first of all, there's the bad news and the good news. The bad news is that people feel like they've done absolutely everything right, and their lives are trapped. Young people say, look, okay, I went through, I got an education, I work nonstop, and I have made the calculation that there is no mathematical path for me to own a house. It's just not possible. In Toronto here, for example, if you take the average income and the average house price, it would take you 29 years to save up for a down payment. So, if you're
For a down payment?
For a down payment, not to pay it off, forget paying it off. And so if you're a young woman who's got a biological clock, obviously, well, do the math. You start off at, let's say you're 25. Well, you're going to be in your 50s before you can afford the average house. So how are you ever going to have kids?
And that's about the time when people think about downsizing from their house.
That's what they used to think about downsizing. And, they usually had their house paid off back by the time they were in their early 50s. So just to show how dreadfully things have worsened, that's the picture of the youth. Then there's the kind of middle-aged people who do have kids already, and they're terrified of the dangers in the streets. I mean, our streets are just being overtaken by drugs and gangsterism and other dangers, and they want safety again. And then you have business owners that are saying there's just no way to continue to compete in Canada. We have to look at moving, and that means the next 200 jobs we create is going to be in Ohio or Florida or some other place than Canada. That's the kind of overview that I get. The good news, though, is that people do now have some hope. They think that things can be turned around, and they have clearly and correctly diagnosed the problem, which is entirely political. There is no physical, geographic reason why Canada should struggle to supply people with great opportunities of home ownership and family formation. In fact, we should be the richest country in the world. And people increasingly know that, and they know that if we make the right, albeit difficult, political decisions, that they will once again be able to do as their parents did, which is to say, get a house, start a family, live in a safe neighborhood, raise their kids with good traditional values. That's another thing I'm finding, is that a lot of people are really getting back to those values that we were told were unfashionable. They want, young people today, they want to have families.
Well, there's been a real conservative swing, especially among young men. Well, no wonder, because they've been demonized for, 30 straight years for every aspect of their masculinity, from their play preferences to their proclivity to destroy the planet with their ambition. And so there's definitely an opportunity there, and clearly your political party and you are capitalizing on that you have the support from young people increasingly right across Canada.
We are winning among youth. In fact, the youth were the first to come on board with me. My rallies were overwhelmingly populated with youth, which is not normal for conservatives.
Right.
And the reason is because in your youth, of course, you as you write it, young people want to have the adventure of their lives. They want to go into the wilderness and earn a living and bring it home and raise kids and have a purpose that's bigger than just short-termism. And I think, 20 years ago, the socialists would go to university campuses and say, vote for us and we'll let you be a kid forever. We'll give you free stuff and you'll never have to get a job. And that was very temporarily popular across the Western world. But then young people woke up and found out this was not a utopia, it was a total dystopia. And that all the things that they really valued and wanted for their lives were impossible when they were being borne down upon by this massive state. They've learned that help is the sunny side of control. And so now young people and I love this. This is great news. Our young people are saying, I want to start a business. I want to invent something. I want to create things. I want to become a tradesman. And then when I get good enough at that, I want to hire 5 other tradesmen. And by the time I retire, I want to have 300 employees. And then I want to give that company to my kids. These are the stories that I hear when I go out and about in Canada. And the great news is we can have all those things. That's the optimistic message that I have for people. But we've got a limitless supply of resources here. We're like a cornucopia. The third biggest supply of oil, 5th biggest supply of natural gas, biggest supply of uranium, 5th biggest supply of lithium. We've got not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 coasts to tidewater. We live next to the biggest military and economic superpower the world has ever seen. We have a highly educated population and the best system of government in the history of the world, the parliamentary system. Not the best government, but the best system of government. So all these massive advantages, we just need to unleash that potential.
Right, so the unhappiness that you're seeing among young people seems to me to be a consequence of the mismatch between the opportunity they see right in front of them and their frustration at the fact that opportunity can't be capitalized on, even if they're contributing their fair share.
And they're definitely doing their part. Like they really are. It's always been a habit of older people to say, the youth these days. When I look at the young people today, all they do is work. I am astonished when I meet young university students how much they work outside of their studies just to scrape by. How many hours of labor they do as waitresses or in another service job so that they can pay their bills. Way more than when I was a student, 25 years ago.
When I was a kid in Alberta, I could work in the summer, and I didn't work on the rig, so I didn't have one of the high-paying jobs. I had a more what would you say, a job that was secondarily associated with the resource economy. I could make enough money in the summer, in 2 months, 4 months, to pay for the tuition and my entire year's rent.
Of course.
Right.
And now these kids are working 20, 30 hours a week in addition to a full course load. And they look exhausted. When I meet young people today, they are exhausted. They have bags under their eyes, and all they do is work. And the worst part about it is not that they're working all the time, it's that they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Are you tired of feeling sluggish, run down, or just not your best self? Take control of your health and vitality today with Balance of Nature. With Balance of Nature, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day. Balance
to the thing I actually cared about, which brings me to a pretty big subject. Going back on iOS is objectively bad. And, okay, all right, something can't be objectively bad, but what it can be is objectively inconsistent, which from a user interface and user experience standpoint is objectively bad. I can't believe that Apple still hasn't mandated an official Apple way to go back. Basically, big fans of the swiping from the left, but they only use it just enough to trick you into thinking that it should work all the time, and then bam, an app hits you, clicking on the top left like my old iPhone 4, or canceling in the top right like this. And even the occasional swipe in another direction. Now, app makers absolutely share some of the blame for this, but guys, they're 17 years into this experiment, so I think it might be time for Apple to just take the darn reins, or maybe in other cases, lose them. Overall, I found CarPlay to be pretty okay. My car doesn't have a physical button for previous track, so if I wanted to have media controls and my map on screen at the same time, I had to split screen, which I don't prefer. I like a nice big map, but that's probably more of a me problem, and you can't blame the handset makers for all the dumb things that the car manufacturers are going to do, so let's not worry about that. Let's worry about the bugginess that I experienced. Every once in a while, the volume would crank itself, and I ran into this issue twice. It's probably worth noting I saw this with some random earbuds too, though. So, actually, now that I think about it, there were more super loud, cabling, and Android adjusting the volume level. How do I change the volume for example? If you've never touched Android, this is going to blow your mind. I can adjust my ringtone, the fact that that doesn't exist, I was riding in the streets. I know this is going to get lost in Android and iPhone users are coming from completely different experiences. iPhone keyboard is missing so many things that I completely take for granted. For example, while the iOS does let you in order to modify your letters with whatever diacritic marking, or even speak in the occasional form, yard, or essay, Android lets you use the same technique to access numbers and punctuation from the first layer of the keyboard. One of those secondary characters. And this is an absolute godsend for those of us who write our texts like our English 12 teacher made us up. Now, I tried switching over to my usual Alt keyboard, SwiftKey on iOS, but somehow, all these years later, it is still trash on the iPhone. Core features are missing, like the aforementioned long press tuning, and even the ability to resize the keyboard, and in general, it just feels off, with worse predictions and a more tedious process of going back in different directions. Like, maybe I want to type RHIS. It autocorrects to this. I go back, no, I meant RHIS, and I should be able to fix the accidental autocorrect and my capitalization at the same time. On the iPhone, not too much. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say that this limitation probably comes down to Apple giving keyboard apps far less access to the interface, which is probably a good thing, but it makes for an overall significantly worse typing experience on my keyboard of choice, which also just would occasionally disappear, leaving me with the default. Weird. Now, one thing that's better about iOS is the super responsive long press keyboard shortcut to reposition the cursor. I like it, but I also don't struggle with fine motor control, and it's usually faster for me to just tap the point in the middle of a word anyway. So, not being able to do that on the iPhone actually kind of drove me crazy. Now, I've got a lot more things to get through, so let's rapid fire a few. I can't get to the home screen without physically swiping the screen after authenticating, and then it's animation time again. Just got out of my way and let me use my phone. I can't change the size of the app grid. I'm stuck at 4 wide. On the normal iPhone 16, that would be fine. But if you're giving me all these extra pixels on the Plus, I really like to use them. It's like they intend for their larger devices to just be for the elderly or people who have trouble with the smaller screens. And here's a weird one. I ran into this problem while rearranging apps. I think maybe the ones I place manually might behave differently than the ones that are automatically placed. Sometimes it just gets confused. But in fairness, Apple's new to this whole putting things where you want them thing. And here's the funny thing. When I was migrating in the first place, Apple's move to iOS app failed twice before actually working, and even then, basically just having SMS, photos, and WhatsApp. I had to manually sign into everything in the point. Left me wondering, what's up with Windows? I'm not sure, but I've been talking about that particular point. In the past, iOS had an account section settings app centrally managed the same people, email, calendar, contacts, all that kind of stuff. That seems to be gone, but I prefer to use organization, so I'm going to read back your calendar telling me what I am doing today. This is your task between iOS left in my way. The account setting was gone, and I couldn't find an obvious way to add an account to the calendar app. So I started looking for workarounds and ultimately discovered that you can go with the iOS Mail. It immediately prompts you to add a new Mail account, which will also send you a calendar and calendar. Now I ended up getting attacked in many remarks called the Sending Manager, but I'm really affirmed that this is a prime example of the spectacularly close to design. The justification I was given for this is that app settings, including accounts, should be managed from within the Settings app and the App menu, and then the individual app. That is Apple's aspiration. But as we've seen with that functionality, Apple's aspirations don't always match reality. So let's play a quick game called Find the Account Management Menu. In the app, that one that's in the app, another one that's in the app. They're pretty much all the apps themselves. And while the first-party Mail app does have account management buried 4 layers deep within the menu, the Apple preferred way for some reason, it still prompts you to sign in that first time you open it, meaning that if you're trying to sign into an account from within an app, that is a perfectly reasonable expectation, even if you had no prior experience with other platforms. The good news for Apple, though, is that the solution to this is simple. When I click Calendars, Add Calendar, Add Calendar, and then I have this account thing here, that should just be a drop-down that should prompt me to add another account instead of it just doing nothing. You're welcome. Gotta be clear, this isn't a deal breaker by any means. It just means the next time that an Apple fan tells me, it's just so gosh darn intuitive, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help it. I might actually laugh in their face. Maybe a little bit more than coffee down there. Oh boy. If you want the long version of this thing, you can check out the band show from a couple of weeks ago. But the TLDR is, when I lift my finger in my news feed or on Reddit, I expect the screen to move at the same speed that my finger moved and then decelerate from there. I do not expect it to move at whatever relaxed, chill pace that some Apple focus group has determined is the most aesthetically pleasing in order to hide their 60 Hz refresh rate. Another thing I touched on during that lecture segment is buttons, particularly this new camera button here. Out of the box, I kept accidentally hitting it only to have a user point opening that I could configure it to require a double click. Huh. Well, that's super cool, I thought. I wonder what other apps I could make it run. No. Camera and camera adjacent. Speaking of the camera, boy was that ever so great. known as someone coming from a 6-year-old device. I don't know what to say other than I should hope so. And besides, my main focus isn't on the particular iPhone, but rather my overall experience with iOS 18. An experience I could probably go on for hours about, but Tim Apple, doesn't have hours to watch this video, so how about I boil it down to just one thing that I know? Let's talk about rotation. Most iPhone users I run into don't even realize this, but for a good 10 years now, you've been able to lock an iPad in landscape orientation, but not an iPhone. Now, we use iPhone as our teleprompter here in this video, and because we can't lock them in landscape mode, we have to train all of our camera operators in a maneuver that we call the dip to reorient the screen. It's something we do so often that we don't even really think about it anymore. So, why bring it up? Because when I was going through the list of apps in my account, since the Navigation Wizard didn't actually copy my apps over like it said it would and I had to use it manually, I came across Jetpack Joyride, and I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't played that since the last time I did iOS. It's been years. And I immediately fired it up. I played it for a second, then I put my phone down to make a note about something, and when I picked it back up, the game was upside down. I showed myself a picture as well. I gave it the old wiggle, I tried to reorient it, but no, it would only work in one of the two possible landscape orientations. What the heck, Apple? These kinds of arbitrary distinctions, like which way is the approved landscape orientation, assuming I'm allowed to be in landscape at all, do nothing for your user. They do nothing for your profits. So why? To be clear, iOS has come a long way over the last few years, and it can do so much more than it used to do. Timeline, Godsend, Spotlight, Sticky Tools, AirPods, which is super cool as long as everyone has an iPhone. But Apple still has some work to do to be willing to accept that after the iPhone leaves the factory, it's my iPhone. If I want to hold it like this instead of like this, or I want to use a teleprompter, that's my business. If I want to move the dynamic island to the other side, that should be my decision too. And until Apple's willing to truly embrace that, rather than begrudgingly give us little breadcrumbs, I just don't think it's true. Which doesn't mean that it's bad. If you love your iPhone and it works for you, you are not wrong. Just don't get upset if you run around declaring that your preferred ecosystem is the best, and not everyone agrees with you. Especially if you've never spent significant time on the other side of the problem. Maybe do some kind of cultural exchange program, like 6 months and seeing how the other half lives. That could be a really interesting experiment. Doctor, excuse me, I need to go hide from some families. Oh. But not before I tell you about our sponsor, Squarespace. Make sure that your business is ready for the holiday season with a quick and easy-to-set-up website. Squarespace's platform is designed to streamline the website building process while still offering incredible possibilities for customization. Their blueprint system lays the foundation for creative layouts and styling options. Then, you're free to go buck wild, customized to your heart's content with their post-free drag-and-drop 3D item. Never stuck on what to do next? Their design intelligence AI tools are there to lend your hand. Just throw in a prompt, and it's happy to teach you directly to the 3D design experience.
어?